Today, we're looking at Aurora Blue. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, there's timestamps down below, but if you've got the time, I would appreciate you checking out the entire video. If you'd like, you can follow me over on Instagram as an ink guy. Also, if you're new here, I do fountain pen ink reviews daily, so I would invite you to subscribe. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I put the ink into this Viscosity Van Gogh with a medium nib, wrote with it for a day, and then made sure I took my notes with it. I standardized my first writing sample by using Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper on all of the tests that I do. I do use other papers, and some of those will show up later in the video. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, and to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer some shading spots because it's going down just so light. Now, we see it a little darker on the O compared to the RA. Just there's shading spots. The extra fine is quite a bit darker than the 1.1 stub. The extra fine has no feather spread, halo sheen, and it does offer quite a bit of shading. Like when you look it over, it starts light, works its way dark. The word lazy is very dark, especially compared to the word dry directly underneath it, and 12 seconds to dry. Now the medium is about the same tone as the extra fine. The medium had no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer shading, but at this point when I felt I needed to prime the pen, I started getting a much darker, more consistent blue without the shading. So I got a feeling that this might be a little more representation of the color we'll actually get. I don't know the dry time. For some reason, I didn't write that down with the medium. The scrubby for both show us no color variation, although we do get color variation up in the writing samples, not after it's been primed. Tomoe River. It has no bleeding. It has normal Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread. It has halo all the way around the word Aurora. It's really neat that it's haloed here, but I think it's haloed because it is just coming through so light. The extra fine is a little bit darker than the stub. The extra fine has no feather spread, halo sheen, although it's offering shading. Like when you look at the word over, it's much lighter on the O, dark in the center. The R gets light again. It's very nice. We're seeing some nice shading within the writing. 18 seconds to dry. Medium is a bit darker than the extra fine. The medium has no feather spread, halo sheen, and it's still offering moments of shading. I wouldn't call it a lot of shading. I'd call it moments of shading. That might be I just had a little less pressure on it. 27 seconds to dry. Now we do see a tone difference depending on the nib and the flow. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. We didn't expect it, and we didn't get it. Rhodia. No bleeding and no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is darker than the stub. The extra fine has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. 15 seconds to dry. The medium is darker again, once again showing color variation depending on the nib and the flow. The medium has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. 21 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation, which we didn't get. I agree with Vita. I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And what we see is that this is a true prime blue. Now, it works its way straight up. There is a line that's just faintly staying on the bottom, and it just works its way up as you would expect any prime blue to do. The one on the right, I let dry for 10 minutes before I put it into water, and there is a distinct blue line across the bottom where this ink has really started to bond with the filter paper. Although Aurora is not really known as a permanent ink, I do feel that it might have a little bit more resistance based on that. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, don't use this in a note-taking situation if you like to highlight your notes afterwards. Looking at the water, we see that it is reactivating and lifting all this ink off the paper. Now, it's not a clean white dot, but if you look at the upper right part, you see the white of the paper coming through. So despite what the chromatography said, water should be enough to get this out of your pen. Now, Pen Flush did everything that water did and nothing more, and I don't see a need to use it. And of course, the 1/3 bleach solution obliterated it off the page, but there's no need to use this to get it out of your pen. I test for viscosity or flow using a thing called a tilt test. I will link how I do that, the video of it, down below or up in the cards. I also then put it onto a standard distribution so it's more easily seen with all of the inks that I've tested. Now, for the inks I've tested, I've found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Aurora Blue has a viscosity of 2.69, making it normal. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with a realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. I find this by using my writing samples that were done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. Aurora Blue has an average dry time of 9 seconds, making it normal. And it makes it another one of those inks that, interestingly, has its viscosity and dry time show up in about the same area on the bell curves. Instead of finding inks that look like Aurora Blue, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I wanted a nice orange with this blue. I chose the Atramentis Red Orange. The second writing sample is done on yellow Rhodia, Lavender, and White Lines paper. Once again, I'm looking at the yellow Rhodia to see what it might do to the color of this ink given a yellow background. And when we compare them, it's really quite interesting because I was expecting this to be more translucent a color, and it's much more opaque than I originally thought. I don't really see much color change except in the stub. The stub, it becomes kind of a teal color. But in the extra fine and the medium, the color is really unchanged. It's unaffected. So this is mostly an opaque ink. Lavender paper has no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. Again, the extra fine is darker than the stub. The extra fine still has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. 9 seconds to dry. The medium, darker again than the extra fine. So again, we're seeing color variation depending on your nib and flow of the pen. The medium has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. 14 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. We didn't expect it, and we didn't get it. This is White Lines paper, not known for its fountain pen friendliness. It generally doesn't do very well. Now, it did incredibly well with both the extra fine and the medium. It had no bleed through, no ghosting. Very impressive here. The stub had no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine, again, slightly darker than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The medium is 6 seconds to dry. The medium is darker than the extra fine, again, showing color variation by nib and flow of the pen. The medium has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. 9 seconds to dry. Still, the scrubby shows us no color variation, and we still got none. And that is all that I have for writing samples. So what do I think of Aurora Blue? I think it's underrated as a standard blue ink to use because black really gets all the limelight in the Aurora line. It's pretty good and it's very consistent to use. What pen and nib would give you the best writing experience with this ink? Well, it makes a bunch of pens feel a little bit smoother, so you can choose anything you want. But I might choose a pen that I enjoy, but has a little bit scratchy nib. You might use this to help it feel a little bit smoother on certain papers. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if it's your first time here, I'm going to remind you, if you enjoyed it, subscribe. Thanks for watching.